I'll turn it over to Kristina Dzara, who's our PhD educator in the BEI, who's going to lead this session and is our lead for education science and initiatives. And so with that, Kristina, thank you for taking the time here. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Eric, for that kind introduction. It really is fantastic to be here today, and I really am looking forward to a very engaging session with you. I do want to make sure that everyone knows that we are proudly on Twitter. So if you happen to be somebody who tweets and you want to send a tweet or two during this session, our hashtag is Brigham BEI, and we welcome your engagement there. I absolutely have no financial disclosures. I do want to remind everybody that this session is in fact being recorded. Now, I do have Dominique Hart serving as the chat moderator today. Want to give her a big thumbs up for just graduating from the Master's in Medical Education program at Harvard Medical School. No small feat, so congratulations there. We are going to use this chat box a little bit for engagement, but also as a back channel for discussion. So if you have any resources, you have any questions, feel free to use this as something that, props up and supports our conversation today. I do want to make sure everybody knows that we're going to have a few quick stops for questions as well as time at the end for discussion. So don't feel rushed or that the chat is the only way to engage. And Dominique is going to be helping me out by putting a few useful references and resources in the chat throughout this conversation. The first thing I want to say to each and every one of you is I have been there. I did a count in my head, and by my estimation, I have authored, co-authored, edited, or otherwise contributed to 100 posters in my time. My approach is to really try and encourage that readability, simplicity, and cleanliness. And these are things that I've learned over the course of my career. So in part, this presentation today is, based on best principles in poster design, but also things I've learned over the course of my career. And I have served as poster judge for the Association of Academic Psychiatry and for the Massachusetts Medical Society. And so really, this is something that I do have just a small little bit of expertise in today. And that's why I was so excited when Shubha gave me the opportunity to speak with you today about this. In terms of learning objectives for this session, I do want us to recognize some attributes of a brief and meaningful abstract. This isn't going to be a lot of what we covered, but we will go through briefly. We're going to then appraise a research poster. This will be a big portion of our time today and offer recommendations to improve. So I look forward to all of you engaging in your small groups and really participating in that conversation today. And then finally, we're going to identify some strategies leading to an effective research poster presentation. And part of this is making sure that we all have the confidence we need to do a good job when it is our turn to present. Now, before we really dive in, before we get deep into talking about posters and presentations, I want to make sure that I set the stage for our learning by thinking about Glassex's criteria for scholarship. There are 6 criteria, and if something is scholarship, if we have done something that is scholarly, we want to fill these 6 criteria. We want to have clear goals for our project laid out from the beginning. We want to be adequately prepared to do our study, and part of this is thinking about the lit review and the background. We want to have appropriate methods that will allow us to answer our question. We want to have significant results, not necessarily significant in that statistical significance sense, but that the results are meaningful, that we interpret them in a meaningful way. Effective presentation is also essentially important, and that is what we're focusing on today. And finally, as scholars in education, we should be able to reflectively critique our own work. Think about what went well with our project and what we could have done better to improve ourselves and improve our next project. And the one thing I want to say about effective presentations is that it's your duty to do it. It is your duty as a scholar and an educator to disseminate your work. Projects are hard. This work was hard. You should be proud of that work, and you should be excited to share your work with the world. I will point out, thank you, Dominique. She popped 2 resources in that chat box. One of them was recently written by Shubha Ramani, who's here with us today. She's the director of the PRISE program. And it's a very nice paper, a very nice AMEE guide about really thinking out educational scholarship. And so I would recommend you take a look at that. And also a very nice last page sort of discussing educational scholarship that I'm a big fan of. So take a look at those resources. Yes, thank you, Shubha, for clarifying. Not study results, but communicating your presentation or paper to others. Thank you for clarifying. So the next thing I want to talk about briefly is writing for abstracts and presentation. And these tips really focus on keeping it simple. If there's one thing that I can say over and over is focusing on simplicity, right? The first thing I have to say is follow instructions. Do you want to be the person whose abstract gets kicked out because you didn't follow formatting instructions and you didn't follow word count instructions? This is a very simple and easy way to not be able to present your work, not following instructions. So before you dive into preparing that abstract, read the instructions, make sure you follow them. This is a very simple thing, and you'd be surprised at how many people don't do it, especially for word count. The other thing is you absolutely want to have a brief results-oriented title, right? Have a clear title, have it be short, sharp, compelling. Draw the reader in. You don't want to confuse them, draw them in. But your title should give the reader a very clear sense of what your work is about. You also want to be brief, and this is a good key point for any academic writing. Brevity is key. It is always better than being verbose, right? What are the most robust components that someone needs to know in order to understand your work, right? What does the reader need to know? And what extraneous information can you cut out? You also want to, in abstracts and presentations, really avoid colloquialisms and acronyms. These can confuse your reader, right? The reader has to try to remember them. They have to try to translate them in their mind. They may not even know what something means. If someone's reading your poster, they should not have to use that cognitive energy to try and figure out what your poster is saying. Use clear language. Again, avoid those colloquialisms and acronyms. And then finally, I've already said this, but I'm going to say this again. Succinct, 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 succinct. One rule that I use for myself is to write something out, especially if it's an abstract or poster, see if I can cut it in half, cut 25%, and then cut it in half again, right? It's not absolute that you must do this, but the point here is make it succinct. Trim, trim, trim. Every sentence, every single word should be thought out to make sure that it is as tightly worded as possible. You'd be amazed at how much you can trim if you just take a little bit of effort to try. Now, before I move forward, I want to do a quick stop for reflections and questions. Does anyone on the Zoom today have a thought, a reflection, or a question that they want to bring up about what we've discussed so far?
Kristina, this has nothing to do with what you said, but AMEE is just talked about as Amy, just so you know.
Okay, well, I thank you very much for that. In my mind, it was a little bit different, but I'm happy to start saying Amy per your instruction. Thank you very much. Any thoughts on what I've said so far in this session? Any thoughts on any of the tips that I've given? Anything like that from anybody? I know somebody must have something.
Yeah, maybe I'll just add something to what you said, Kristina. And I know we're going to talk about posters in a second, but in general, we're all in love with our own work, and it's very, very hard. We think every word is meaningful and absolutely critical to life and to other people. Therefore, always find a colleague who is neutral, who is detached from your work, and they will ruthlessly cut down your words, be it an abstract, be it a poster, be it a paper. So I really encourage that.
Right. I would agree with you, Shubha. I think this is something, when we do this scholarly work, we are so intimate with it, right? We've read the background, we know the results, we feel that everything is so important to be said and everything is so valuable. And so getting an objective eye, whether it be someone else on your research team or, as Shubha pointed out, ideally someone who's not even associated with your project, to read it, to tell you what you're not seeing, to tell you what doesn't make sense and what can be cut, is extremely valuable. So thank you, Shubha, for that kind comment. Oh, yes. Ed?
I would add one other reason to involve somebody from the outside of your research team, not only for brevity, but for understanding things that you have been doing for so long that you take for granted. It's hard to know what a new reader will require to understand your work. After you've been at it for so long, it's almost impossible for you to know what others need to know. And that's another advantage of bringing in somebody from outside the project.
Absolutely agree with that, Ed. What doesn't make sense to someone more novice than you on this particular topic? I think that's a critical point. And I think what this all points to is something that I actually will be talking a little bit about later, is really making sure that this is not something you're putting out to the world without having others look at it. Every time somebody looks at it, every time somebody reviews it, your work is going to get better. And this is true for posters, for abstracts, and absolutely for publications as well. I'm going to go ahead and move on at this point and do a little crowdsourcing. What is the purpose of a research poster? Let's go ahead and get that chat buzzing. What do you think? Tell me, what is the point of a research poster? What's the purpose of a research poster? Go ahead and pop that in the chat for me, please. Sharing your work, Eric, absolutely, right? Disseminating, just like we talked about with those classics criteria. Kristina, disseminate results. Karen, to eyeball a summary of work shared. So I think Karen's pointing to, sort of a snapshot, if you will. Shuba, communicating your work with clarity. I like the word clarity there. I think that points to sort of being succinct and being targeted. Who else has something to share? I see some other people here in this session. Eric, showcase your abilities and work with others. Camaraderie, absolutely. We have the ability to say, hey, I am a person who works with others. Hey, I am a person who wants to build this body of scholarship. Completely agree with that. Miriam, Anne, Zoe, Ala, Elif, anyone else have any thoughts here? Zoe, potential collaboration. Absolutely, right? You're doing a poster on a topic, someone comes up to you and says, I love this topic. I'm working in this area. Could we potentially work together? Could we collaborate? Completely agree with that. Any other thoughts from our community today? Ed, present my work that may not be ready for full journal publication. I absolutely love this, right? So maybe you're presenting a smaller portion of your work, right? Maybe you're saying, hey, I don't have the full paper results yet, but here I'm giving you some preliminary results while I am working on that. Shuba, have fun. I love this, right? I know we're all living in this Zoom world right now, but as we emerge from out of it, those big poster sessions can be a lot of fun at big conferences, right? You get your piece of cheese and your fruit and you stand there and someone takes a picture of you and you're meeting people and you're building your professional networks. Absolutely. I do find that fun. Building your CV, right? We all have to think about promotion and things like that, moving our work forward. Dominique, sharing your message visually. Absolutely. I love that, right? Putting those visual components out there, making something that's attractive to your reader's eye. Kristina, see if others are interested in your work. Absolutely. And Elif, getting feedback. Thank you for that one. Absolutely. This goes along with our whole get some feedback on your work, right? See what you can do as to improve. As educators, we are all on a journey to continually improve every single day. Hats off to all of you. Thank you for these fantastic comments. I really appreciate them. They are exactly on point with what I was thinking. And Shuba says one final thing, getting that feedback. This feedback will help you when you're writing or moving on to the next stage of your research. Absolutely. If you don't have an eye towards how you can improve your work, then you are not having that growth mindset that we all need as educators. Now, what I wanted to do today is sort of set the stage with a very basic poster template that I created. Sort of took some BEI colors, has a bit of a BEI and a Harvard poster, Harvard logo. What I wanted to do here is show you what a very, very, very basic, without a lot of bells and whistles posters could look like. So what I want to ask you to do is go ahead and use that chat function again and pop in some of the things that you see with this very basic poster template. Eric, showcase your affiliation, right? Be proud of where you work. Be proud of what you do. HMS, BEI, I love it. Sue, it is segmented. Not fully sure what that means. I think she means sort of organized by heading, that it's broken up. Is that right, Sue? Absolutely. Core headings for an educational research poster. Thank you, Shuba. Right. This is a basic research poster template. Background, methods, results, conclusions. You got to figure. Easy peasy, and people are very used to this. Eric points out, though, that there's a big space for the figure in the middle, right? We want to have one, maybe two great figures that someone could look at the figure and pretty much understand our main results, right? So we want to really show that off. Good space for figure in the middle. Kristina says, Karen, showcased your credentials. I think she means that the names are clearly displayed, that the Brigham Education Institute and Harvard is clearly written there. Agree. Eric says, readers go left to right, make it read like a typical manuscript. Exactly, right? The work should flow. They should flow in a clear and logical order. If you've ever seen a poster where things seem to be put in places and you can't quite figure out where the methods are and where are the results and what they did and what their main, study point was, that gets confusing. If you confuse your reader, they are going to stop reading and they are going to move on, and that is not what we want. Shuba, thank you. Bullets to indicate. So you're not writing a huge chapter. You're not writing a huge verse, right? You're breaking it down for the reader. You're signposting to them what they should be doing. What do we think about the colors? Eric likes the colors. Well, they're the BEI colors, so that makes sense. Right, the colors are not overwhelming, right? We've got a couple of gradients of blue. It doesn't make the reader's eye sort of turn and be like, ooh, that's a little hard to read. Kristina notes that there's enough space for conclusion, often let out. Zoe, yes, the colors are uniform. They're not going to be distracting to the reader, and that we've got some clear contrast. So all of these things are absolutely. And Shuba, who is a rock star at grammar, I know this because she's helped me out from time to time. Don't worry about grammar, sentences, and prepositions. Right, your point is to have your sentences be as tight as you can, bulleted. And so if it's not perfect language, but it's succinct language, that's probably going to be ideal. Now, the other thing I want to point out about this poster template is that this stands alone. If I use this template to make a poster and I put that poster up at a session and I am not there to talk to people, somebody is still going to be able to read my poster, understand the basic points of it, interpret the figure, and move on without ever interacting with me. And so that's why part of the reason I wanted to showcase this to you, because this is an example of a poster that you could literally hang up and not be there, or you could be there to explain to your reader. That's always something you want to think about in the back of your head. What is this setting in which I will present my work? Because if it's a setting where you are not going to be there to explain your poster to the reader, you are going to need to use a little bit more text and a little bit less graphics in order for the person to be able to interpret. I also want to briefly touch on readable font size. I don't think there's any hard and fast rule on this. You want to make sure if you're printing a poster for a real, live presentation, posters are about 4 foot wide by 3 foot tall. I'd recommend a 60 to 65 font size for headings, no smaller than a 35 to 40 font size for regular text. If it's digital, you want to make sure the text is fully readable from 3 to 4 feet away, computer screen. Regarding fonts, you would like to use a sans serif. Sans serif are much easier to read, and I think Calibri and Arial are both really nice fonts to use. And the final thing I say before I move on is that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's nothing wrong with a clear, visually appealing, succinct poster which is accurate to the work that you did. Starting with a template like this is absolutely going to help you, and you can adapt it to your own needs. You can adapt it in any way that works for your project. And I think a lot of departments may have a template. Your institution may have a template. A trusted colleague or mentor may have a template. And finally, I will point out, Shuba mentioned in the chat, your results, right? They could be in progress. They may be to date. They may be preliminary. You may have a curriculum project. It may read a little bit differently. You may include lessons learned. So big picture is your poster should be adaptable to what you did, but you also just really want to keep it succinct and don't want to overwhelm your reader. Thank you, Shuba, for this other point. If you are going to use any images, make sure that you create them yourself or that they are in the Creative Commons. And if they're not in the Creative Commons, then you need to get copyright ability for that. Thank you for that great point, Shuba. You do not want to get in trouble. Now, what we're going to do now is move into our active portion of the session, and I'm so excited for you to have this opportunity. Thank you. Yes, Dominique Pixabay is great for this. I have a poster to share with you today. This poster is authored by Rebecca Sternshine and Shiba Ramani. She is a PRISE scholar from last year. What we did is we took a stellar fantastic poster and we made some changes. We purposefully muddied that poster up so that you, as in small groups, could recognize clear opportunities to improve. So what we're going to do is we're going to have your small group leader, they're going to screen share this in needs of improvement poster with you. You're going to have 10 minutes in small groups to think about the design principles we discussed already. What information is missing? What information is extraneous? What appeals to you? What does not? How would you improve this poster if you were on this research team? So Ed will be in group number 1. He'll do background and project goals. Shuba number 2, methods. Eric number 3, results. And Dominique number 4, conclusions. You will have 10 minutes in the breakout room. And again, each group leader is going to screen share that poster for you. So you will see it in your small groups. After 10 minutes, we'll regroup and each leader will have 2 minutes to share their 3 areas for improvement. Does everyone understand the purpose of the breakout rooms today? Is everyone prepared to go into their breakout rooms and engage? Fantastic. Any questions about the breakout rooms? All right, with that, Caitlin, let's go ahead and open them up. Welcome back, everybody. Are we all here now? No, close to it? Let's see. Yeah, I think most of us are back. Fantastic. I hope you had some robust discussion in your small groups. And so let's take a moment to do a report out. Ed, I believe you were group number 1 with the background and the project goal. What opportunities for improvement did you identify in your poster? Ed, you're muted.
Our group identified a number of things, but many of them were technical and visual. So first of all, in the background, it was felt that that we ought to get focused on the topic very quickly. It could be more concise. It could be slightly better organized. It's not bad the way it is, but that it really needed a tightening in terms of language.
Sure.
Beyond that, we felt that there were lots of editorial and technical issues. That first of all, the 2 logos, Harvard and BEI, were very, very small.
Yep.
Second of all, text sizes differ.
Yeah.
Third, and background and project goal, one centered and the other's left justified. In background and project goal, one uses bullets and the other doesn't. And that we felt that the graphic between background and project goal didn't do a whole lot. In fact, it kind of got in the way and we weren't quite sure what its purpose was. So there were lots of technical things. And then one other thing which had nothing to do with our section in particular, but the title is Working to Learn Together. And one suggestion was that it seemed to be more about learning to work together.
Okay, so I think these are great suggestions, and you point out absolutely a couple of technical things, and those technical things distract the reader, right? You're trying to get into seeing what the poster is about, and instead you're like, oh, they didn't take the time to make this something that feels streamlined and feels direct and feels clear. So I thank you for bringing that up. I think those are all very valid.
By the way, there are actually typos in there.
Yes,
if you look at the third line, multiple clinicians in different fields.
Yes, there are some.
If you look at the last line under project goal, it's working on the ICU instead of in the ICU.
Right. And, as a reminder, we purposefully muddied these up so that you would have some opportunities to improve. And I think your group has done an excellent job in finding some of those challenges. Shuba, I know you popped into the chat. Do you have a couple of things that your group identified?
Yes, methods. So this is one thing, though, the brevity did not help the methods section. He had no idea. If you look at survey design and distribution, we don't know how the survey was designed, or what outcomes did they target, and how was it designed, and for what purpose. And the second part was survey distribution. And we didn't say communication. What do you mean by communication? Between whom? In collaboration, what is collaboration? What sort of collaboration? And education, whom are we educating and what type of education? And everything is smushed into one sentence, which makes the clarity very poor. And then in terms of distribution, how was it distributed? And to whom was it distributed? Who are these interprofessional ICU team members? So those were the main things. Besides everything that Ed had raised, those were the big things that we came up with.
Right. So it sounds like we would want our methods to be a little more clear and direct to answer some of those who, where, when, why questions, and maybe even breaking it up into a few more bullets, getting rid of some of that extra text that we don't need. Thank you, Shiba, for those comments. I think, Eric, you had group number 3, you had the results group. What did your group discuss?
Yeah, we had some small pieces of input and then this kind of big picture as well. Small things to start. When you look, we'll just go bullet by bullet from the results section top down. We believe that when you deal with data, often the somewhat standard, not absolute, but is to often begin with the absolute pure number and then give the percentage instead of leading with a calculation. So we would have written that bullet. We received 32 of 39 responses, parentheses, 84%. So just slightly different. We also focused a little on bullet number 3, just being a little bit hard to understand grammatically. Respondents indicated learning in silos, through self-directed learning, or morning rounds. And we were kind of waiting for the verb to follow. They liked that or caused this or whatever. The big picture item a little bit, we went back and forth on interpreting the figure, and it wasn't at all completely negative. In fact, we understood the figure. It just took us a while to really unpack it. So we all had to focus in on it, almost read every phrase, look at the dots and that. So then we felt it was pretty good, but we asked ourselves the question, would everyone who's reading the poster have that much time, and maybe is a different way of showing it better? The last thing I'll lead with is when you look at results, we always are drawn back to the project goal because the results should tell you answers to your goals. The first goal was to understand perceptions of clinicians. And we asked ourselves, was that kind of clearly stated then that their perceptions were? And we didn't think so. The second bullet was to inform a curriculum, and we didn't see any kind of hypothesis as to what people then thought would be a good curriculum. So there was a disconnect there.
Fantastic. So I love that you brought up that there were some opportunities to sort of grammatically improve or improve the phrasing or the presentation of our data, that potentially the figure was not as clear or intuitive as it might be, and really making sure that our results did in fact reflect the project goal. So I think those are all very valid points, and thank you to group number 3 for pointing them out. Group number 4, Dominique, what did your group discuss?
So we discussed, first of all, the content and then the forum. Regarding the content, we felt there was a disconnect, or it was unclear how the conclusions really relate with the project's goal and results. Mm-hmm. In the forum, the message is unclear and it's too wordy. Mm-hmm. Therefore, it's not effective. There should have been a limit for the word content. Maybe use bullets, as you mentioned before, and the bold that they used, it was used incorrectly to highlight something that is not important. Yep. We also found, though, that it is a good idea to highlight with a square some important information, but it should be succinct, shorter, and clear. Yep. Maybe using an image would be a better idea. Less complex, yeah.
Those are all valid points. And I think as a team, we really hit on a couple of the design principles that we would really want to move forward in a poster. And so what I'm going to do now is ask, did we improve? And so what I did is I made a lot of the changes that you have recommended, made those logos bigger, added bolding to real keywords to draw attention, moved that project goal visual so that it did not block the text, bullets throughout, consistent spacing throughout, text size throughout, made the divider lines the same color, made the headings consistently and evenly spaced, removed a ton of extraneous text, got rid of extra words, there are, there is, to, that sort of language, consistently used punctuation, removed the arrow in the method's results that was not needed, organized recommendations for educational intervention with some visuals to try to make it clear what those potential educational interventions will be, and got rid of all that reference text and put a QR code there. Now, overall, this poster was reduced from 640 words to 434 words. We cut 206 words without really cutting the meaning. And so I will point out that some of the things that you recommended, I did not do, we did not do, right? It sounds like some of the methods could be streamlined and presented a little bit more effectively. It sounds like some of the results could still be improved. Remember, your poster is always something that can be improved. Your work can always be improved in progress. But the point here was that I wanted to focus on removing anything that was inconsistent to reduce distraction, which allows the reader to focus on the content. What do you think? Is this poster better? Throw me a sign if you think it's better. Thumbs up, a wave, yeah. Yep, we got some thumbs up. Yeah, it's better, right? Again, always on an improvement journey, but made a lot of recommendations that the group came up with, and it is a better poster for it. And the other thing I want to point out, absolutely, again, is that Rebecca purposefully and Shubha allowed us purposefully to muddy up the poster, to change it up, to do what we needed to do for this session so that we would all have the opportunity to see how we could improve. So I would just thank her for that. Absolutely, Shubha, lots of room for improvement. Now I'm going to go on and just summarize some of those key attributes of effective posters. Remember to have a brief, results-oriented title. Showcase a clear single message. We talked about this in some of our discussion, right? What is the real purpose of this poster? Do the methods align? Do the results align? Does the conclusion align? Is your poster in alignment with what you said you were going to do, or does it feel very disconnected? Tell the story through graphs and images. The more graphs and images that you can use, the better. And I will be the first to admit that better poster probably still didn't have enough visuals for something that would really pop and be super attractive to the reader. Limit that text. I think we did a good example. Cutting 200 words without really cutting meaning. Taking a poster from a little over 600 to right over 400 is a big deal. And then ordering those elements logically. Make sure that as your reader looks through your poster, things are going to be presented in an order that makes sense to them. I'd like to talk a little bit now about some 2.0 poster things, because if I didn't, I probably would be missing something. So these are sort of bells and whistles things. These are, again, that 2.0. And Dominique is going to pop these resources into the chat as I talk about them. Now, the first thing is this Better Poster Movement initiative. It was started by a doctoral student a few years ago named Mike Morrison. His intention is to improve knowledge transfer efficacy of posters by clearing that clutter and honing in on the critical point that needs to be relayed. Now, I'll be the first to admit that I don't absolutely positively love the Better Poster format. I do like that there's a main finding. I do like that it's translated into plain English. I do like that the important words are emphasized, but I think it makes quite small on the left and right hand side the text, and it would be hard to read those visuals, especially in a virtual setting. So you can decide for yourself whether you truly think this is better and whether this is something you'd like to use in your next poster. But what you can see is that some of those principles like limited text, key take-home, visuals to support could also be embedded in a more traditional poster design. I want to also make clear that people are moving towards interactive posters for digital presentation. You can have multiple components, multiple tabs. This can be done in PowerPoint. There's also a program called Prezi that a lot of people are using to do this. It's an alternative to PowerPoint. It makes your posters less static and more engaging, but these do require a higher degree of work and expertise for the poster creator to effectively prepare and present. So something like this is likely going to be better if you are doing it in a live session, if you are presenting to your participants to let them see the work as you move through the sort of animations in the poster, if you will. The next thing I'd like to bring up is QR codes. We've all seen them. I'm sure we all use them. Now, what you can do in a poster, as I did for Rebecca's, is take out something that doesn't absolutely positively need to be on the poster. And in this example, it's references. You can easily click that QR code, be taken to the references and get them. So maybe you think about in your next poster using a QR code for an extra chart or graph, or for the references, or maybe you actually published that paper and you want to link out to the final publication. You can use the QR code created creatively, but the point here is that you can take a bunch of text that doesn't need to be on your poster and instead send the reader to it if it is ancillary to what you're doing. The next thing I would like to point out is color calculators. We talked a little bit about colors. Everyone knows that colors have complementary colors, right? So any color in the world has a number of colors that always will complement it. I am a huge fan of this Sessions College color calculator. It's free and it's a way to match colors. If you have the color code for any color that exists, you can find what colors complement it. So then when you're making figures, you can use those colors so that you're not giving your reader a whole bunch of crazy colors that don't look good together. You can be certain they look good together, right? Colors are something people don't often think about, but anything you can do to make things complementary as opposed to contrasting is going to help you. Now, in terms of colors, I will say that red as the foundational color is generally not recommended, and the reason is it reminds people of blood. I also want to mention the Adobe Color Extractor. This is a super cool thing, and I'll shout out to Dominique. She showed this to me a few weeks ago. You can take any visual or any logo, pop it in the Adobe Color Extractor, and it will give you those color codes exactly. So this is a really fantastic way of making sure you know what colors you're working with and that you can find the complementary colors, free and easy. And finally, I'll just point to word count. It seems like people don't know that you can easily get a word count in PowerPoint. You go to File, Info, Show All Properties. It tells you exactly how many words you're using. And as you streamline your poster, you can be like, wow, I cut 10% of words. Wow, I cut half the words. And so this is an example of what that improved poster word count looks like. This is how I saw, as I was trimming, how I was doing in terms of reducing to my word count. So this is another nifty and free trick you can use to get a sense of how verbose is my poster. I would like to go ahead and just do another quick stop for a question or reflection from what we've done so far. Who would like to take an opportunity to unmute themselves and give me their thoughts? Eric, yes.
I'll just say what you had kind of commented on, which is in smaller venues, not as much national meetings, I increasingly have seen the video presentation board as a functional unit, which is, I think, just neat. So I do think that's the way of the future for us to be able to create a poster on hard paper, but also to create one that you could show on a video screen.
Absolutely, completely agree. And I think the key point there is that you want to think about the venue in which you will be presenting your work. Are you going to be there to explain it to the reader? Does it need to stand on its own without you being there? Is it something where you can use that, a sort of moving poster format, or do you want it to be static? What's going to work for you in the setting in which you're presenting your poster? Thank you, Eric. Strong points. I do want to take just a few minutes to talk about confidence and presentation. It is natural to feel stuck or anxious. It is okay to feel nervous about presenting your poster. I am going to invite you to wash off your imposter phenomenon because you have this. This is your work. You should feel proud of it and you can do it. Smile, harness that confidence. You can absolutely execute a strong presentation. So in terms of presentation, remember, no matter what you're doing, in person, virtual, if you are going to be presenting your work, arrive early, 10, 15 minutes, be relaxed, settle yourself. Don't be all, hot and rushed. No, prepare. Do not read your poster out loud, right? No one wants to show up to your poster and you literally read word for word to them what you do. No, give them a summary in a minute, right? Start with your one-liner. This study explores the role of learning goal orientation on student selection of elective courses in medical school. We knew this was important because we collected data from this group. We learned that main outcome. We hope to in the future. You can use this as a very simple template to end up discussing with somebody your poster in a minute or a minute and a half. Give them those main points, make it feel like a natural conversation. And as Dominique put in the chat, I do have a last page on developing your elevator pitch. If you're looking to grow in this area, it is open access and I encourage you to take a look at that. And finally, practice. Practice out loud. Practice multiple times. Practice in front of a colleague or friend. Solicit formative feedback. Incorporate that formative feedback. Embrace that growth mindset. You are not going to grow as a speaker and educator unless you practice. I think there's a misconception that public speaking comes naturally, that presenting well comes naturally. I'm sure there are people that are good at it naturally, but does practice work? Absolutely. Should you feel bad if you have to practice? Absolutely not. And in summary, I would like to say, let's embrace a scholarly approach in all the work that we do, especially presenting our scholarly work. We want to be thoughtful, we want to be intentional, and we want to reduce text and use graphs and images as much as possible. And then as presenters, let's demonstrate that confidence. Let's embrace that formative feedback so that we can all grow. And the final thing I would say is I wanted you to see Rebecca's real poster. Rebecca's work as a prize scholar was presented at the Harvard Macy Institute. She had the ability to verbally present her poster to a small group. She could focus less on those background methods, results, and conclusion sections, abbreviated her needs assessment, able to demonstrate visually what her educational intervention looked like, and really be able to have a poster that is absolutely something she should be proud of. Rebecca is a rock star, and this poster demonstrates that. So I thank her and I thank Shubha for allowing us to translate this poster into more of a research design for this purpose and then messy it up so that we could all learn from it. And so if we can just throw her a sign, give her a thumbs up, let her know that we're thankful for that opportunity today, I would greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much to Rebecca for giving us that opportunity.
If I could add a shout out to Rebecca. So I've been mentoring her for a couple of years now and working very closely with her, and will continue to work with her. And I've had the pleasure of, most people can't say, the surplus funds in the PRISE budget, which I have now used to support her to join the Masters in Health Professions Education at Maastricht. In fact, she joined as of last month, and she finished her first module earlier this month.
Fantastic. And it's always wonderful to see our strong educators embracing their educator identity and choosing that opportunity to gain more formal education. So thank you, Shubha. And again, thank you to Rebecca for the opportunity to mess up and purposefully offer formative feedback on her poster. Thank you to Shubha and the PRISE program for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. Thank you to all the BEI faculty and staff for your support. Dominique for being here as a chat moderator. Thank you, Dominique. And finally, if you have any formative feedback for me about my presentation today and how I can improve as an educator, Dominique put the +Delta link in the chat. You can also use this QR code. And with that, I think we have just a minute or two for discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kristina, for doing this session, and very engaging and wonderful pointers from everybody.
Thank
Ed,
you.
Eric, and everyone else. Thank you.
I thought it was super. Go ahead, Ed.
About actually standing there in front of your poster. You will probably be feeling that you're the only one who nobody's interested in. And I've felt that millions of times and asked my colleagues and found out that they felt exactly the same. So don't get uptight if in fact there are piles of people at other places. It's hard to judge the level of interest. And second of all, don't get so excited about telling people that you don't give them the opportunity to be interactive with you. I can't tell you how many times somebody wanted to tell me so much about his or her poster, and I didn't get a chance to ask a question or get a word in. Really interact with the people who stop before them. Find out what they want as well as inform them about what you did.
Absolutely, completely agree. This is not a one-way street. This is a two-way street, Ed. So thank you for pointing that out. I think we might have time for just one more quick question before we go.
With that, we're right on time, Kristina, and to Shubha and to the whole team. I just thank everyone for joining. I welcome you to our 7th in the series in about a month or so. And this was just great. Thanks so much, Kristina. Everyone have a great day.